Now that we've figured out a select statement that will give us the information that we want, let's go ahead and put it in our function. So we're going to need to capture the value from the select statement, and let's capture it in a variable. I'm just going to declare a variable. Remember, it starts with an @ and I'm going to call this available item, and it's going to be of type int. And then we're going to put this available item, we're going to set it equal to, so available item is equal to, and here I'm going to put the select statement. Now notice it puts red squigglies under it. Here you need to put it in parentheses. So the entire select statement needs to be in parentheses. All right, so I'm going to select, I'm only selecting one item. That, by the way, is important when I'm going to store it in a variable that only holds one item. Right? This needs an int, and if I was returning more than one, it wouldn't fit in an int. So I must use that top one to be able to do that. But now I don't want to just get it for movie 2. I want to get it for whatever movie item they send. So I'm going to put that in the place of the 2, and whatever type they send. So I'm going to put that in where the B is. So now available item has that value, and we can simply return it, but we need to consider the time when we get nothing. For example, if the movie ID is 5 and the type is D, what are we going to get? We're going to get null. So the value that's returned from the select statement is null. So we need to test for that. And we need to, so let's test if, and here we can just ask available item. If available item is null, what do we want to return? And if we go up here, we can find out in the comments that it returns a movie item ID or a -1 if none is available. So if that's the case, then we just simply want to return a -1. All right. Otherwise, what do we want to return? We actually want to return available item because it'll actually be a value. All right, let's go ahead and execute this to see if everything is running right. Well, it compiles. Now that it compiled and saved, let's go ahead and test it. So here's some example commands that we can use to test it that are right here. Notice how you execute a function. Remember, when you execute a procedure, you actually call execute. But with a function, you just use the name of the function and in parentheses put the parameter. So this is a little bit different how you call it. Use the name of the function followed by parentheses and the parameters. One big difference, you need to include the schema. Now, if you've been reading the textbook or any of the resources, you'll see that they talk about the schemas and use them pretty often. And so far we haven't run across a time when we need them, even though they're recommended. This is actually a time when we need them because this is a user-defined function and it was defined by the database owner. That's what DBO is, and that will be the default schema if you haven't set it to anything else. If you've set it to something else, then go ahead and put it the schema that you've set it to. But otherwise, it's just going to be the database owner. That's you. And include that whenever you call a user-defined function. So I'm going to take this over here and put this command right here and ask it to please print this out for us. And I want to make sure that I'm using the right database, so I'm going to leave that there. And what does it print for us? Movie item is 11. Okay, so it returned something for us, an available movie item of 11. Let's go ahead and figure out if that's correct. That's one of the nice things about this work that we do is we can always figure out if things are correct because we can just look at it and see. So we need to have a movie item, and this was of type movie 3 and B. So if we look down here, movie 3 and B, there's one is 11, one is 13, and one is 15. And then we need to check and see if they're rented out. So 11, 13, and 15. And we look at the rentals. and we don't find 11 in there, or 13 or 15, so they're all available, and it just returned the top one, which is 11. So that's awesome. It worked. Let's try the next one. And this one is for the same movie, but a DVD version of it. And execute it. There we do. We got a movie item 12. Now let's try this one that says it's going to return a -1. And this one is going to return a -1. Let's see why. Because there are no movie IDs that are 103, right? So sorry, that movie is not available. There actually isn't that movie in the database. What about this one? This is that movie 5 that we know is already rented out. So it exists in the database, but it's rented out. And we get a -1 from that too. Now our function is doing just what we expect it to do. Now that the function is complete and tested, I'm going to go ahead and save it in this file. Also have to save these other parts where you drop the function and set it to use purple box. Also notice that down here I've added a go statement at the end of the function. We don't need that when we're executing it because we click execute, which is exactly the same thing that go does. But when we're running this file, when we get here, that needs to be executed before we try to use it.